Hi everyone, another Football Through Spectacles one-on-one. Today we have a special honor and special guest who is based in UK in London. Yas, hello and welcome, and thanks for having time with us today.
Thank you for having me, Bruno. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today, man.
Yas, can you tell us what is your first point with you meet with the football? Were you a professional player? Were you playing academy in some kind of football? And what are you doing today?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the question. I really appreciate it. I think going back to my own journey, I've never played at necessarily a high level, predominantly grassroots football, but my oldest football memory is watching Manchester United and Bayern Munich in the '99 Champions League final. That was probably where it all started for me, and really got a lot of love for the game, if you like. And then, as with most of us that are in coaching, so I played football manager, championship manager, really wanted to be the next big coach. And that was kind of really the start of it. And today, fast forward probably 30 years, I'm now in a position where I currently work for the English National FA. I'm working as a coach developer and a coach mentor, supporting coaches right across the pathways.
Great. When you decided, what happened that you realized that you will not be able to play? Every of us, when we were young kids, we have a dream. Oh, I will play in Man United. I will play for Chelsea. I will play for, I don't know, Arsenal and that kind of stuff. When you realize, okay, my life isn't going in that direction, but I still want to stay in the football. But what are my next choices? Where I will go? When you realize that's happening for you?
Yeah, so I was probably about 14 years old when I was playing for a team and had this coach, and he was just so enthusiastic and really passionate about what you did. It made me start to think, actually, you know what, I quite like how he's working with us. It's maybe something I could see myself doing in the future. And then I guess a couple of years later, when I was 16, 17, went and did my FA level one, first coaching license. And then I remember walking into the room and I saw the coach educators delivering the course, and I thought to myself, you guys are lucky. Like, you guys get to teach people how to play football. Um, and I guess from that point onwards, it was really just focused on coaching and understanding that coaching was a pathway that I could explore.
Okay, and then what was your journey? Okay, you said I can't play any professional club or something like that, or any club in any level. You decided to go to, what were your education at that moment, and what were your first step in your professional education in football?
Yeah, so I was in college, so in England at the time, we go up to college at that time until from 16 to 18. Did like sports related courses, sports development and things like that. And then in that time, like I said, I did my FA level one, which is like the first formal coaching qualification. Um, and then from there, just straight off doing that, I just put myself in the deep end and started coaching straight away. So I remember my first year of coaching, the first 2 years was working with that under 14s, under 15 boys teams, um, getting a lot of experience. And the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it. I just kept just finding more places to coach. And it's funny, I was talking to a coach yesterday. I probably in the first maybe 2.5 years of my coaching, I probably did close enough around maybe 500 sessions. So I was coaching pretty much every day in loads of different environments at that time. And it just gave me more of a hunger for wanting to continue my journey.
In that moment when you started, how you will said that offer for education in a football manager or football trainer was at that moment, and for example, when you compare it with today, how many more options I would say you have at the moment?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think coach education has changed massively from back then. So obviously, I'm going back to like 2009 when I started my journey. Um, and one of the major differences that we've got now is that the first step on the ladder now is an online qualification. Back then, it was a qualification that we did face to face, and we did it over 3 or 4 weekends to get experience coaching players, getting feedback. So I think from that perspective, it's certainly changed. In terms of options for courses, I think it's not so much that there's less options or more options now. I just think the courses are more in depth now, probably. But I think coming through when I first started, I think there was a much more of a bigger focus on the technical and tactical aspects of football. Whereas I think as time's gone on, especially over the last 10 years and certainly the last 5 years, there's much more emphasis on coaches being much more holistic in their approach, supporting players not just from the technical, tactical standpoint, but also psychologically, socially, and physically as well.
Yeah, at that moment, I would say that from that moment till now, football coaching is, I would say, science, because so many different departments open inside of the coaching. When you started, analytics was in US sports and show up in European football around 2015, I would say, in general. But now it's pretty much one of the main of the part in the football. When you realize that you will need to use analytics as a normal tool in football?
Yeah, I think for me it's probably fairly early on. I mean, I was quite fortunate in my own journey that after a couple of years, because I was so enthusiastic, so passionate about what I was doing, I was able to get myself in environments where it was probably a little bit more professionalized. As a result, some of the more professional environments were really using stuff like analytics and data, not just in their coaching of the players, but also now, fast forward 10, 15 years, it's being heavily used in the development of coaches as well as just players.
Also, you said through your football journey, you were from academy to academy. And for example, in one academy, there are in level A, the second one is in C, and you were working already on an A, but you see that you are missing few things over it. So how you compensate that things when you don't have everything what is needed for your work?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. Would you mind just repeating that?
As I said, in your football journey, you were working in different clubs, and some of were in better condition academies, some were at the lower level. So when you realize, okay, I don't have all what I need for my work, how you compensate that? For example, when you compare from the place where you have all the tools.
You mean in terms of resources and facilities?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because actually when I first started coaching in academy football in particular, what happened for me was that I would spend, because I was so enthusiastic and so passionate about wanting to further develop, I would spend a lot of time going into different environments and understanding what they would try and do in different environments. And I guess one of the challenges for me was, okay, I can see what the clubs are trying to do, what the academies are trying to do at different levels, but maybe the environment I'm working in doesn't necessarily allow me to do those same things in the same way because of the lack of resources. So one of the massive things that I tried to do in particular was try and understand what the outcome is, what the environment was going after. And once I understood the outcome, I could then, I guess, think about different creative ideas around, like, how can I get those same outcomes, knowing I don't have the facilities. So then it started putting me in a very, I guess, a challenging position, really, and really stretch my thinking around, okay, there's some great things that we can go through and help players develop with, but actually we might need to be a bit more creative in how we do it. So for instance, I remember once, there's a club I went to observe early on in my journey, and they had things, they were like thinking about things about how to support players with their physical development at various ages in their journey. So as an example, I remember in particular, we had a situation where this club, I won't name the club, but they had a specific room that we used to do movement pattern work with the players in. And it got me thinking, like, so for instance, just to give you an example of what would happen is, they had noticed that certain players had deficiencies turning off one shoulder or turning off the other shoulder. So they would go and do specific movement pattern work with those players on those specific deficiencies. And it got me thinking, okay, well, how can I utilize the concept of what they're doing without having access to the facilities and the resources that they're doing in their environment? And then sometimes, when you work in smaller clubs in particular, you have the challenge of how much space do you have? You might not have, as many footballs. You might not have as many goals or whatever it might be. And I think having to learn to adapt and adjust and work with those, lesser resources and still be able to maximize your outcomes, I think was a real key part of my journey as well.
All right. Can you tell us? You coach players and you coach the managers. So what is the main difference between uh, coaching the coaches and coaching the players when you work, for example, one on one with each other group?
I mean, to be honest with you, there's not much difference. I think it's just understanding that, you know, understanding that it is a different role. We're not working with the players directly. We're working with the coaches that are going to work with the players. And I think a large part about the work that I do is around, you know, this is Coach Marino. Marino's got his way of working. He wants to coach. He coaches under 14s boys in his local club, or he might be coaching in an academy somewhere. But the key thing is understanding your environment. Like as coaches, I think we all think that we know what we're doing. Everyone thinks they've got the best ideas and whatnot. And I think that's part of the joy sometimes in the role that I do is that I'm in a situation where, with some experience, I can help you bring your ideas to life. So I might be able to connect the dots where you maybe can't see them yet, and just helping you bring, like I said, what you want to get from that environment to life. So I think from a standpoint of developing the individual, I think whether we're working with players, whether we're working with coaches, I think it's the same thing. We're developing people effectively, and I think the key thing is I always say that a coach's role and even a coach developer's role in my case is it's not about me telling you how to do things, but it's me helping you on the journey that you want to go on so that you can develop. So if you've said that I want to get better at X, it's not for me to decide that you should get better at Y instead. If you want to get better at X, I'm going to help you get better at X in a way that I feel is going to be most beneficial for you. And it's not always me telling you what to do, and probably never is me telling you what to do. A lot of it is through questioning, guidance, a bit of trial and error, and letting you explore different ways of working. But I think it's the same with players. I think we don't want robots. We want people that can make decisions and think for themselves. And I think that's a real key part of this. I think from that perspective, whether I'm working with a coach or whether I'm working with a player, it's very much coach centered, player centered, in a way that I'm allowing you to make decisions. I'd really like to think I'm empowering the individual that I'm working with to make their decisions around their own development with my support and my guidance. If that makes sense.
Also, before we transfer ourselves to coach networking and what is about it, can you tell us, for example, when you are coaching the youngsters, you have so many influence on the outside on that players. Parents are one of the group. For example, they didn't succeed in some kind of field, and then they put the pressure on the kids, and then they think, okay, maybe my kid will be on professional level and he will support our family and that kind of stuff. When you met that kind of situation, how you react and how you stand on it, how you put yourself in that position?
It's a really good question. I think Marino, I've been coached for 15 years, and in all my time I've been coaching, yes, parents can be difficult sometimes. But I think if you actually look at it, a lot of the parents they they just want to help their children, so they do whatever they think is best to help their children. So I think a large part of it, from a coaching perspective, is what work are we doing as coaches to support the parents in understanding our processes. I think sometimes what happens is you go to a club and the coaches tell the parents, right, you stay over there. I actually think it's very good, the coaches don't separate the parents, keep the parents involved, help the parents understand what it is that you're doing, what you're saying to the players, why you're saying it, what do the things that you say to the players mean. Because even for instance, like on the sidelines, people talk about our parents are always shouting from the sidelines. Okay, but they're not going to stop. So rather than trying to get them to stop, why don't we help them with what to say from the sidelines? right? So one of the things I talk about a lot
So
in my work,
you need to guide parents as well, like a
yeah,
child.
100%, 100%. The thing is, they're the biggest supporters of what you're trying to do. They're trying to help you help their child, but if they don't know how to help, they're gonna do what they think is best, right? So I think for us, it's a responsibility for coaches and clubs to help the parents be better equipped to help the players. So, for instance, one of the big things I talk about is that coaches can help parents with is when the game is finished. Parents often ask them, "Okay, how did you do? Did you score? How many assists did you get?" Because that's all they know how to measure. They don't know how to measure anything else. So if we can give maybe, I talk a lot about working with parents, give parents a script. So after each game, I might say to you, Marino, okay, Marino, here's a list of questions I want you to ask your son at the end of the game. I want you to ask him, how did he, did he enjoy it? What did he enjoy about the game? What was one thing he thinks that he did well, right? What was the biggest thing that he learned today? And was there anything that he saw from the opposition which helped him or which made him think different, right? These are type questions to really open the mind of the player and it takes the pressure away of having to think about, oh, did you score a goal? Did you get an assist? Did you win today? Because the reality is you could play the next 15 games in under 14s. No one's gonna care in 10 years if you won those games or not. No one's even gonna remember who you played.
Yeah. I understand what are you saying. Also, from part of the world where I'm coming up, is more that player are chosen by individually, but on your side, most of the kids are trained in the system. So, for example, at the moment, you have most of the player who are, for example, like they are adopted to the system. They are produced position number 6. They are producing position number 8. They are producing strictly winger. But in Eastern Europe, most of it, there are still routes that they are produced, play with the ball, dribble the player, and that kind of stuff. And here at the West, if the player took, in the youngsters, if the player took the ball, dribble too, and then the coach starts shouting on it. Why is in modern football everything is going like that? Everyone needs to be part of the system, and individually is going at the backwards.
It's a really good question. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure I would say that there's specific specialists at this age. I think something that we have in England that we talk about a lot is called is around the different phases of the development system. So you've got foundation phase, you've got youth development phase, and you've got professional development phase. And align that to something that we refer to as the long-term athlete development model. Okay, so we have early specialization. There is elements of that, but I think in principle, a lot of the clubs, especially when you get to like an academy level, working with the professional clubs and the youth systems, a lot of them encourage the same things, which is about staying on the ball, which is about enjoying the game. So that kind of nines, tens, 11s kind of age group, their main focus really is about getting players to fall in love with the game. The challenge that comes with it is that when young players get on the ball and they spend a lot of time on it, the parents. To go back to the parents like to complain, oh, this person doesn't pass, that person doesn't pass. But actually, I mean, I actually agree with that. I don't think they should pass at 9. I don't think they should pass at 10 and 11. Doesn't mean that they're never going to or that they shouldn't. But I mean, I don't think the focus and the emphasis on players should be about passing at 9, 10, 11. It should just be about getting comfortable with the ball and really enjoying being on the ball. Because when they get to 9 aside, 11 aside, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then when they become adults, people are going to tell them to pass all the time. But if they don't take that opportunity when they first start playing the game to really get comfortable in being in possession of the ball, dribbling and running with the ball, that's a very, very, very difficult thing to start to pick up later. So I think that's one part of it. I think the other part of it is understanding that as they go through that journey, I think they should get a variety of positions that they're going to be playing in. So especially at younger years, 9, 10, 11. I think by the time you get to 12, and not all players, but most players, you kind of have an idea of where they're going to be on the pitch. So then what you do is you don't say, okay, you're only going to play at right fullback, or you're only going to play at left mid, or you're only going to play in number 10 or whatever. But no, you start to think about, okay, what area of the pitch are they going to play in? So if he's going to be a wide player, give him experience playing at the back, give him experience playing in the middle, give him experience playing at the top. But in that area of the pitch, right? And then as they get older, maybe 14, 15, now you're going to probably start to specialize in a position. And I think when you start to now, because it's not uncommon, but it's not often the case where you find players who go on and make a career after 16. After 16, it's really tough. It's really tough. You get your pro contract, or you don't get your pro contract at 18. If you get you get a scholarship, or you don't get a scholarship at 16, you do 2 years. After 18, at 18 it's very rare that you're going to change positions, because now you're probably in a position which is probably going to be very much linked to what you have been working on going forward. Now, yes, there's still chances that when you go into adult football, when you play open age football, that you might change positions. But by 18, 16 to 18, you kind of know this person's going to be a right midfielder, or this person's going to be a left midfielder, or he's going to be a striker, or whatever he is. And it's only when maybe a different coach comes in, someone who has a different perspective of that individual, that situation might change. But I think in terms of specialization of positions, I wouldn't necessarily say that there is a lot of that. I mean, sometimes you might get young players who are definitely going to be something. If you look at them, you think, okay, you can't see them on any other part of the pitch. But I think it's important that we don't make those decisions too early, because at the same time, if players grow and they don't, that might have an impact on where you might want to play them. Especially if you're working in the academy systems, they do a lot of testing, they do a lot of physical testing to try and understand where the development of the players are. Have they gone through growth spurts? Are they still got growth spurts to come potentially? They look at the parents to see how big are the parents and the physical the stature of the parents and what impact that might have. Because the reality is there is perceptions around different positions. Like, it's very rare that you're going to sign a goalkeeper if you have information that tells you that they're probably not going to grow beyond 5'2". But then a striker, you might actually think about, okay, maybe depending on what type of striker they are.
Okay. And also one most important things in young life is, okay, he's going in academy since, I don't know, since 6, 7 years old. Usually around that age, kids are starting with the football, and they are going to that puberty and that kind of stuff, and they reach some of level in 16 and they are successful. But if you look how many percentage from the junior squad from under 16 to under 19 drop out, and then from the under 19 to under 21 don't play any more football in that age. For example, in 16 years he was super successful, but he reached 21 and he doesn't play, not even on a local, just not even for a fun. Why is that happening? And why football is global sport, and but so many people or kids are started, but just rare came to the top level? Why is so strict that, and most of it just really stopped to play football at all?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think it comes back to, you asked me a question of how did I get into football? What was my first contact with the game? And I think for a lot of people, you talked about it already, for a lot of people, they play the game because their parents play the game, or their parents want them to play the game, or their parents want them to become professional footballers. And it's a real challenge because, some people, they're in the system for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. They maybe started at under 16 and they've gone all the way to under 16. But I think we have to remember that as young people, this is why they shouldn't just be football, in my opinion. Because what happens is now, the older they get, the more specialized they get in just football, especially if they've been doing it from a young age. In their minds, they start to build this idea of football is their life. So when football doesn't happen for them, they don't know what else to do.
To be specific, you have a kid in your coaching. You have kid 16, 17 years old, and he is on the age. Should I go play? Should I go outside? Should I take, I don't know, scholarship, do some college or something like that? And you see that maybe if he decided to go in a football way, but he will be a decent player, but not, I don't know, top level or something like that. What your advice will be for that child, for that kid?
I think there isn't a. I guess it's so specific, right? Because everyone will have a different interest. I think if it's someone who's got potential to play, I think one of the biggest challenges we have in the UK, in particular, and more specifically, maybe England. I'll speak on England more specifically because I don't have as much experience with Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and whatnot. I think in England in particular, I think we have a reluctance to want to leave England. Right? I think there's a culture there's a cultural aspect to England where we feel like, okay, we've got the Premier League, we've got the best leagues, we've got the best players, we've got everything. We want to stay here, we want to play here. But if you look at all the top young English players, I mean, especially some of the ones that are coming are playing now, some of them are getting experience abroad. They're going abroad and then they're coming back with experience. Where if they stay here, they might not get that experience in the first place to even go to the next level, if that makes sense. So I think it's one aspect is players having the opportunity to, not even the opportunity, players having the mindset to say, you know what, I'm gonna try elsewhere. I'm gonna open my horizons a little bit. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think two, I think it's also the support network, right? You need to have the right support network in place, and I talk about this a lot. And I speak to parents all the time. I know, oh yes, can you help my child with this? Can you help my child with this? And I think to myself, okay, but it's great. They've got a good support. If the player doesn't want it, it's not going to happen. And I see it all the time where players, they're playing football because their parents want them to play football. They're not interested in becoming professional footballers. The parents want them to become professional footballers, right? So what ends up happening is you've got this battle. The child is trying to, please the parent, and the parent is trying to get the player to become a child to become a professional. But I'm saying to the parents, well, if the child doesn't want it, they're not going to continue it. And what might actually happen as a result of it is they might fall out of love with the game because they weren't playing the game for themselves; they were playing it for you as a parent, and that creates a big problem. Sorry. So when you're talking about having situations where players fall out the game, they don't play anymore, and they've fallen out of love with the game. Like I say to coaches all the time, like I'm a football coach. I've been coaching for the last 15 years. I've been a football fan all my life. I don't even watch football anymore because partly because of my job. I'm in it all day, every day, and I need a break from it sometimes. But you've got players who don't even watch football, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges that's come with the younger generation now. When I was growing up, 15, 16, 17, 18, we were watching football every single day. Right now, my observation is with young people now, they don't even watch games. They might watch a couple clips on YouTube or Instagram and the shorts. They won't even watch the highlights. They'll just watch the little 10-second clip of this goal and that goal. But they don't watch games anymore, as far as I'm concerned. Like my experience, they've stopped watching football in the way they used to. So I think it's a different time that we're in now. So I think they don't consume football in the same way that maybe myself or you did when we were growing up. And I think that's a massive change. So I think that in itself has allowed or created a situation where people maybe aren't in love with the game as they used to be, in my opinion. So I think that's a major challenge as well.
Yeah, I completely agreed with you about focus at the youngsters at the moment. As you said, Instagram, TikTok clips, 15 seconds, focus is done. Did you read something? Read? What is that? Mm, Kids doesn't read anymore, and yes, they don't observe the things like we do. And there is so many options today. For example, we have Monday night Aston Villa with Charlton Athletic, and that is it. Today you have at Monday you can watch any game in the world and that kind of stuff. Also, before we transfer on personally on yourself and your program, what you do. Wondering, in the coaching in the Premier League, why is it so hard for English manager that they are not in the top clubs and they can't win the Premier League? What's the story about it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one to answer, really. Uh, I think the first thing to highlight is this, and I go back to what I said a few moments ago. We live in England now. We've got probably what is the people would say is the best league in the world. Okay, so with the best league in the world, there's a reason why it's the best league in the world, because this is where a lot of the best players come. So if the best players come to the best league in the world, who's going to be in charge of it? The best coaches in the world, right? Now, one of the biggest things that I've observed around coaches who come to England is whether they're at the top of the league, whether in the middle of the table, whether at the bottom, they all come with experience. Even the younger guys, they come with experience. They've either coached in a top league somewhere else in Europe, or they've been coaches in like this, the second team for some of the big clubs around Europe. But they've got coaching experience and managerial experience at the top level. Here in England, the coaches from England, again, very few people from England that I know are coaches at the top level that actually want to go abroad. They all want to work here. They all want to work their way up in England because this is where the best leagues are. But I actually think if you look at it and you look at some of the coaches who have done well from English backgrounds, a lot of them are going abroad, getting different experiences, and then coming back because they're getting opportunities abroad. Now you might not be working with the best players all the time, but you're getting an opportunity to be a manager, be a coach at the top level, wherever that is. So I think that's one of the challenges that exists. I think the second thing is because there's all the best coaches want to come here, it means it's harder for the English coaches to have to work their way up. So then you end up in a situation like this where you've got all the best players in the world coming to England. You've got the best coaches in the world coming to England. What's the one advantage most of the better coaches have over English coaches? They're bilingual, trilingual, they speak multiple languages, which is another benefit for them when they're working with these players from all around the world. A lot of English coaches, they don't have that. They don't have the ability to speak a second language or even a third language. Or if you look at the top coaches, you've got Guardiola who can speak 4 languages. Mourinho can speak 6 languages. You've got this is a common thing for the best coach. They can understand different languages, work in different cultures. So I think that's one of the challenges. And I think what ends up happening is the lifespan of a coach or a manager especially in the Premier League. You're lucky if you're there for more than 4 months. You're lucky if you're there for more than 4 months. So then there's that stability factor. So I think no one. It's very rare now, especially in the Premier League, where you're going to get someone to give you time. So no one's thinking about the next young English manager. They don't really. The chairman doesn't care about the next young. The chairman just wants points on the table. They want to stay in the Premier League. They want to win the Champions League, or they want to get in the top 4. They don't care about who the coach is. That's the reality, right? So I think that creates a difficult challenge for young English coaches. However, coming back to your second question, around coaches winning leagues and whatnot, I don't think it's got anything to do with being English necessarily. But I do think, everything I've mentioned already has an impact on the ability and the opportunities that English coaches get. So there might be some top English coaches out there that probably could, but are they going to be given the opportunity to win it with the top players in the top level? Maybe, maybe not. So far, I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. If I'm being honest, because like I said, there's so many benefits that the coaches from abroad bring with them. If you're looking in England at the moment, you've got Eddie Howe at Newcastle, you've got Graham Potter who's just gone into West Ham, and outside of it, but if you look at Graham Potter's journey, he didn't come up in England.
Yeah, he raised up in Scandinavia.
Do you know what I mean? So he's got his experience elsewhere, and then he's come back and he's come here. But again, Graham Potter is very, his journey has been quite unique, right? But Eddie Howe's come from an ex-playing background. His dad was a top coach, so like he's got a bit of background. He's from a football family. I think the next one, I don't even say the next British manager. Then you've got David Moyes. Now David Moyes is, he's been around for a long time. He's got experience. So it's like, but he's had to. I think coaches of that generation, David Moyes' generation, they were coming in at a time where experience was offered to them. Opportunities were offered to them. Now, young coaches, I think they have to go, especially young English coaches, if they really want to push to the top level, they're going to need to start seeking opportunities away from being in England. Because that's the other thing. I think you're more likely to get an opportunity in England at the top level if you go somewhere else and try and work your way up there first. If you try and come through the system in the English leagues, I think there's too many steps. And the argument for me would always be, well, just because you did it in League Two, League One, I don't think you're going to necessarily be able to do it in the Championship or the Premier League. But then if you've got prime example, you've got young coaching Kieran McKenna.
Yeah, he raised up in 3 different levels in super fast time.
Yeah, but the thing is, so it just goes to show that there's not a lack of talent. The talent is there if the opportunity is given. And he was fortunate enough to go to a club that gave him a chance, and it probably helped him that he came from Man United before that, right? That probably helped his opportunities. Obviously before he was at Man United, he was, he spent some time at Tottenham Hotspur as well as a youth team coach and things like that. So, it doesn't just happen overnight, and I think that's the thing that people often forget. And I think one of the challenges, especially in my role when I'm working as a coach developer, working with some coaches who are trying to progress, is helping them understand that this isn't an overnight process. Some coaches have to go away and they have to work for 10, 15, 20, 30 years before they even get that first chance. And the stats tell us, once you get your first opportunity, if you get sacked, 75% of you don't get a second opportunity.
Yeah, it is a rough world in that kind of industry. Can you tell me what is the main difference, or is it doesn't exist anymore? When you look around Europe, you have first team coach, and he's a coach. But in England, all the time you have manager. What is the main difference between pretty much they are doing obviously similar job or the same job, but what is the difference between that?
Yeah, I think how I would describe it is, well, first and foremost, we're getting less and less managers now. There's less managers now than there used to be. And I think the biggest change and the biggest shift for me around that is, I think a head coach, their job is to focus just on stuff related to what's happening on the pitch. Okay. I think with a manager, similar to a head coach, there's not major differences, but I think the main difference is when they're the manager, I don't think they really do much of the field work. So if you look at Manchester United as an example, when Alex Ferguson was in charge, the last 10 years or so of his time at Man United, he was probably a manager, right? Much more manager, because he had people like Mick Phelan, Carlos Queiroz, Steve McClaren. They all did the coaching. Rennie Muhlenstein, they all did the coaching. He would be the one just sets the vision. This is what we want, right? You come and deliver it. Whereas I think the head coach is someone who gets out and delivers it themselves.
Right. So by yourself, trendy is now that England is going in European style of coaching at the moment.
I don't know if I would call it the European style, but I think they're having to just evolve, because now, if you go back 10, 15 years ago, we didn't have sporting directors, we didn't have technical directors, we didn't have this, and that. The manager did everything. It was just the manager and the chairman. That was it. So I think what's happened is just sports in general. I think the industry's evolved. It's become there's a lot more. There's a lot more resources, a lot more investment put in the industry. They're trying to bring specialists for different things. You talked about it earlier in terms of all the different departments and all the different things. Like, it's just grown. It's just blown up in terms of so many different aspects of the industry. And I think that's just another change that they've had to follow suit with. They've got people specializing in recruitment, people specializing in identifying players and bringing players in. There's even people out there now who are just in charge of dealing with just transfers or identifying suitable targets for the club, or managing all the other stuff. So I think it's streamlined the role of the head coach. So the head coaching focus just on the on-field stuff and the main stuff around the squad, but they're not having to worry about so many different things that maybe the manager used to be able to have to deal with.
Okay, now we are going a little bit focused more on you. What is the coaches network? Is that kind of program? Is that kind of academy? What are you doing? What are your targets? What kind of people are your targets?
Yeah, so the coaches network is actually an organization which I set up 2017, 2018. And the idea behind it was pretty simple. It was just an opportunity to literally do what it says on the tin, to help coaches network. Um, so in my experiences when I was working in like the academy system and things like that, I realized that there was a massive gap between the people that were working in the academy and the people that aren't. And sometimes it was just so difficult for those people to connect. So for me, it was an opportunity to, okay, how do I get a situation where we can start to connect people better? And then off the back of that, that I then later released a podcast myself. And the idea was just basically just bringing people together, similar to what we're doing here, really, just sharing ideas, sharing insights, learning about people's journeys. What do they think? What do they, what's their ideas and what's their views on different things? I think as time's gone on, get to a point where me and you are having a conversation, but there's nothing wrong with the person over there just sitting listening to us, just because they might pick something up from it, right? Off the back of that, it's now developed into different services that I provide, whether that's through coach mentoring, whether that's running training, development sessions for coaches and clubs, and upskilling their staff. So that's kind of it in a snapshot, though.
So, as I understood right, it is some kind of, I wouldn't say the agency, but a place where you can come and hear new ideas, or you can get social networking, and who knows, maybe you will find somewhere else the gig or a job or something.
Exactly, and it's just an organization that's been set up to kind of bring coaches together, and not just coaches, but anyone that's interested in talent development, youth development, athlete development, even coach development. So I think it's just creating a space where people interested in all those aspects can connect.
So you organize the workshop, and they are face to face, and they could be online as well, as I understand.
That's correct. Yeah. So I do a range of engagements. The topics and the themes that I cover will range depending on the environment I'm working with or the organizations that I'm working with. And that could be face-to-face engagement. So that could be me coming out to your club and delivering a practical coaching session or training for the staff, if you like. But it could be an online webinar. So, I mean, there's a range of different services I provide in that respect. Like I said earlier, I've got opportunities for mentoring, one-to-one mentoring, group mentoring as a coach developer, to really support coaches right across the game, whether they're working in the grassroots, whether they're working in the professional game, whether they're based in England or abroad. Anyone and everyone that's interested in developing, we're here to support.
So obviously that you are a coach of new generation, but it is a big fan here in Croatia. The older coaches said, leave them, they are just laptops, coach. What is your advantage? They have experience, that is obvious, but what is your advantage in when you compare with them? They're working for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, maybe in the same club, maybe in the same system and that kind of stuff. But leave them, they're coach with laptops. Okay. What
Do you
is
know?
your
I
advantage?
think I think there's pros and cons. I consider myself quite fortunate because I think when I started my coaching journey, I was taught by those type of people. So I've been able to really take advantage of some of the knowledge and the experience that those type of people bring. Um, I think there's two, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation. I think when I first started in probably Silicon, there's a big focus on just the football side of it, just the technical, just the tactical side of it. I think as time's gone on, we've developed into a situation where people are more considerate around holistic development. I think one of the challenges that we've got now, though, is how we identify and how we determine what good coaching looks like, because everyone is trying to do something different. And the problem that comes with that is, how do you assess whether it's effective or it's working? I think more so specifically when we're working at youth level. We're working at youth level, we're talking about development. Talking at senior level, we're talking about results. We're talking about competitive, with competition now. So I think some of the advantages and disadvantages. I think if you're from an earlier generation, there's a lot more knowledge. I think there's a lot more knowledge, if I'm being honest, about the game itself and how football works and the things to think about and consider within football. But I think one of the things that we see now with the newer generation of coaches is there's so many different styles and approaches now. The problem is, and the challenge is how do you bring that style with that knowledge?
Connection. You are looking for a connection of it.
You have to, because I think there's a lot of merit in what those guys from the previous generation have. Whereas I think now, I think you're right. There is a danger that it might just become laptop coaches, because everything's about presentations, everything's about this, everything's about that. But then when you ask a coach to get out on the pitch and do a session, they start shaking. So it happens. It happens. But I think it depends. You know, there's pros and cons. I think one of the benefits that we've definitely seen now is that there's more thought going into what we're doing as coaches. Sometimes I do question whether there's things that we're thinking about that we don't actually need to think about.
By your opinion, we mentioned earlier analytics. We mentioned about that social part of it. So lots of psychologists are in football. What do you think will be new science which will be entered to the football? In which direction football will go? You know, where they will start searching new knowledges.
I'm not sure about science in particular. I think one thing that we're going to start seeing more of, I think we're going to get more analysts and coaches. I think there's going to be more coaching analysts. So people not studying the players, but they're going to be doing an analysis on the coaches. I think that's definitely something that we're going to start to see. And I think it's difficult to say, because football's developed so much. And, where is it going to continue to grow? We don't know. I think definitely an analysis. I think there's a lot more to do around that. I think what we might also start to see as well is inevitable. I don't know what way it's going to come in, but we're going to start seeing AI in football in some way, shape, or form. In what way, I don't know.
And during your project, Coaching Network, you have many collaboration of it. One of it was with a superstar, legendary, iconic player, which was Shaquilleom O'Nealom. So first, when I read that, first thought was, okay, why is that happening? But then I realized you have many examples from the different sports. For example, Gareth Southgate took set pieces from the NFL and that kind of stuff. So what was the story between you and Shaq?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy now that if I think about it. When I actually think back and I think to myself, well, I had Shaq on the podcast. I think the idea was very simple. I wanted to speak to people who were successful in sport at the top level. And similar to what you just said, Gareth Southgate took a lot of stuff from the NFL and set pieces and things like that. I think one of the key things that stood up to me is that it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in, there's some key things that people do to get success. I want to understand the challenge. I'm very interested in understanding what was your journey like? What allowed you to become successful? What allowed you to get to the point? What were the things that you went through that maybe, if someone listening to this is aware of, that might help them in their own journey? So for me, it was really about understanding that, but also recognizing that someone like Shaq is at the top level of what he did. He's arguably one of the best basketball players of all time. So you have to start to think about, okay, what does it take to become the best at something? And then as your time goes on, you start to see these common things. They've all got a strong desire and passion to do whatever it is that they're doing. There's a real purpose behind what they do. there's a real work ethic and a dedication to making sure that they're developing constantly. There's an element of confidence, but there's also having humility. And I think that piece is just, again, some of the key things to help play. And really, I use that as an opportunity to say to coaches, like, are these things that you can actually coach? Or is it just in the person? I'm not sure if you can coach someone to be more humble. I'm not sure if you can coach someone to become more confident. I think there's something that comes from within.
Also, you have collaboration with Sola Campbella and Jacka Wilsherea. But my question is next one. When player is a big name, when he's at the top level, and he decided to go in a coaching way, but I would say in 95% that doesn't finish good. Why is that happening? You have situation and examples on the opposite way, but in the most way, leave him. He just came because he was a big player.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge. I think for a lot of these ex players, just like myself and probably yourself, when we stop playing, what do we do next? We love the game, we want to stay in football, so oh yeah, let's go coach. It's the easiest thing to do, right? Go from being a player to a coach. I used to play the game, so now I know still players how to play the game. I think that's the mindset for a lot of them. But I think what a lot of them understand really quickly is actually it's very different. And if you look at all the coaches who were players before that have been successful, if you notice, they always, when they get into coaching, they have someone who maybe wasn't a player but has experience coaching on their team. Right? They get the coaches around them, so they understand from a player's perspective. They've got the vision, they know what they want to do, but maybe the experience and actually coaching the players isn't there. So what ends up happening is they start recruiting their own coaches, and I think it's a really important factor. So it's not going to work for everyone. And like I said, some of these guys will get opportunities because of who they are as players. Some of them won't be successful, and some of them will never get another opportunity again.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Someone is good in his job, but no one noticed it. My last question is, how much is important that you have, like you do, that you have networking, or if, for example, you are lower division coach and you're coaching your team in average successful, so you're not socialite, you don't use the networking, how much chance is that someone will be notice you? Okay, this fella is good, he's improving youngsters, he's producing the talents.
Yeah, I think the world has changed definitely, Marino. I think gone are the years where you can just rely on your work. I think if you can do good work and people talk about you without you realizing it, then it's a great way to kind of get yourself known. But I think you have to be clever now. You have to be a bit smarter now, especially in today's generation. Everyone uses social media, whether it's X or Twitter, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, whatever way you do it. LinkedIn, you have to show people what you're doing. People need to know because not everyone's got the time to go out and look. Oh, what is Marino doing? They're not gonna cut. They don't know where to find Marino. They don't even know Marino exists. If Marino's doing good work and he's putting it out there, and people can see the type of work Marino's involved in, and it's easier for me to say, "Hey, Marino, I've seen this great work that you're doing. I'd love to catch up with you and have a conversation." I think that bit's really important. So I think it's don't shove it down people's throats. Don't try and do it before social media. Do it because of what you're doing is the right thing to do, and you're doing good work. I think the best thing, and a great example of this, I remember I was speaking to someone recently. I had a missed call on my phone, and because I hadn't spoken to the person in about 18 months, I thought it might be an accident. They didn't mean to call me. Okay, I don't have a problem with the person. We got a good relationship. But I just didn't think it was urgent, so I didn't call them back. And then about a day later, again, I got another call from this person. I said, "Oh, maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe they're trying to get through to me. They must be trying to get through to me." So I answered the phone, and they say, "Hey, I know we haven't spoken in a little while." And he said to me, Usually when you don't speak to someone a little while and then they call you out of the blue,
They need
usually they
something.
want some.
Yeah.
They need some. So he goes to me, don't worry, I don't need anything. I'm just calling because I want to say well done. And I say, okay. I'm thinking, well, what are you talking about? I haven't spoken to you in nearly 18 months. What are you talking about? And he says, I want to say well done because I'm mentoring this coach at the moment. He's currently, he just recently left the championship club as the manager. And he said that he was delivering a webinar yesterday. And he said he really enjoyed it. And then he told me who it was. And I said, oh, I know him. I know YAS. And the interesting part about that was I'm based in London. This coach is based in Nottingham. So he said, I just wanted to call you to say well done because you're doing some really good work and people are letting people are talking about you. And it made me think, wow, that's amazing because I didn't share that with anyone. I didn't tell anyone. Actually, someone who saw me working told someone else about my work. And I think that's the best thing. So if you can get in a position where you're doing things, you're doing it the right way, you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're doing it with your passion and enthusiasm, the value will be demonstrated. And where there's value that you're adding, people will talk about you. And not in a bragging way, it's not about ego, but it's just keep doing good work. Work hard. Make sure that what you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're trying to help people. And I think in the end, everything will come back your way.
Thank you, Yas. It was a pleasure to talk with you. You open our eyes for so many different spaces. Good luck in your work and catch you up. I hope that you had pleasure time with us, and that is not last time that we are spoken.
Definitely, I'd love to pick up another conversation with you. So really thank you for your time today, Marino. And thank you for the invite, for being involved.
Also, all coaches, I know that lots of the coaches are watching our podcast, so be free and contact YAS. I will let the link under the video, so maybe you will find something interesting for you. Once again, thank you, YAS, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Marino. Take care, man.